Merry Christmas, everyone! Happy Christmas Eve. We're here to entertain you as we always do with a very special episode of Khantehnt.
Khantehnt!
We're talking about Tokyo Godfathers, a timeless classic Satoshi Kon Christmas movie for the ages. So stick around and enjoy. But first, make sure you go to our subscribestar.com/Khantehnt and give us $10 for the bonus episodes, including tomorrow's Christmas episode about Gundam 0080, the most unlikely Christmas show ever made.
Bring your burgers.
Bring your burgers.
この子は神様がくださったクリスマスプレゼント。私たちの子供よ。
So, Tokyo Godfathers. This is a movie about three homeless people in the streets of Tokyo who find a baby and try to bring it back home. It's adorable. It's feel good. It's Satoshi Kon at his most normal.
You know, I was reading some reviews online to hear what like the consensus was about this film, and everyone's like, "Whoa, Satoshi Kon made this, but it's so like not ridiculous." I mean, it's ridiculous in some
pretty
ways, for
ridiculous.
sure, but it's not like crazy or like blowing my mind. It's pretty
It's
straightforward.
not psychological, I
Yeah,
think is what people are trying to say.
Well-
Most of his movies kind of bend reality in a lot of crazy ways.
And there's little moments of that in here, but it's no more psychological than your average day in the life of the struggle that it is to survive in the urban sprawl we live in.
So you were saying something about how this movie taught you compassion for homeless people or something before. I don't know if that
I
was a
surely
beat.
unlearned it afterward, but there was a brief window in there. No, I mean, I don't know this for sure. I was doing a little digging, couldn't find anything about this to learn like what Khan's motivation was for like writing this particular story. But basically, yes, it's a story that at its core is about like, you know, three homeless people who have vastly different life experiences. We kind of learn why they came to the situation they're in right now. And basically just humanizing them and treating them as like normal people who just have struggles and for whatever reason, either their own or due to outside circumstances beyond their control, just have had a really bad roll of the dice. And now, to be fair, some of it is their responsibility. I mean, Miyuki did bad things, like, clearly. They all kind of did to a degree that resulted in this situation of being homeless and stuff. But it's just that you stop on the street and you just look at a crowd, faceless, nameless. None of it means anything to you. But you pick out one person and you just talk to them. You're like, oh, I get why this is why you're on this street. This is why you're part of this thing. You're going to work and you're trying to feed your family, blah, blah, blah. And, like, that's the kind of connection you get with the movie and like learning about their history. So I think it's extremely heartwarming and really am a big fan. And I've seen it once before, and as I like to do in my contrarian desire, I want this to be like my favorite Christmas movie because it's like not super popular as one. So so far it's doing pretty well in the rankings for me.
It does a great job of being a Christmas movie without like it takes place on Christmas. It doesn't really shove Christmas in your face, except that the themes are based around faith and like basically just like I don't know, the divine luck that keeps people alive, I guess. Like I
think hope is a fair way to categorize
yeah,
it.
there's a lot of little miracles that happen throughout the movie.
Yeah.
One big miracle at the end. But like even like halfway through, there's a scene where they're in like a cemetery and they got a baby, and it just so happens someone has left like diapers and baby formula on a gravestone as like an offering. Yeah, so like that's a moment where the movie just kind of like it just kind of happens. The characters don't comment on it. They're not like shocked by how
they do
insane
say like,
this.
oh, what a miracle! Thank you, God.
Right.
But that's it. Like that's the only addressing it
Right,
gets.
and so there's these little miracles happening along the way. Isn't life a little miracle? Little baby's a little miracle itself.
So true.
But yeah, it's
Because the greatest miracle is the first thing that happens. They find this little miracle of birth that
Right.
is Kyoko.
Kyoko. Yeah.
Kyoko.
So the movie's all about that. Those little miracles that keep people going in this treacherous world, particularly with these people who are living in a closer to death than most people.
Sure.
One of our guys gets his ass kicked by some teenagers at one point, just beat him almost to death because they can.
Classic, like Clockwork Orange. Let's cleanse the homeless scourge and just obliterate them from existence because they're gross. And I mean, the most fucked up thing about that scene is how these kids, they've just, our time frame is between Christmas and New Year's Day, whatever it is, when like the big miracle happens. Just like in that period, some kids just like, hey, let's just go have fun and clean up the streets by not even like doing anything. Like, what if these like teenage kids subvert the expectations? They're like, let's clean up the streets by helping this man and shaving him and giving him a bath and getting him a place to live and taking care of him. That's not their idea. It's literally just hit him several times very hard. That's cleaning to them. And then the way they pick up...
I think they were just saying something. I think they just wanted to beat a guy up.
I guess that's what they call it, yeah. But then the fact that they're just like they get a call and they're like, oh shit, the girls are at the bar next door. It's the sociopathic flipping between let's go hang out with our friends and let's just beat up a fellow human. That's what really that is the most freaky scene of the entire movie for me.
And it's totally real too. Well, and it shows you how like people like that, the reason that they can beat up homeless people is that people just don't treat them as people.
Right.
You know, they're just nobody's going to help the homeless person. Nobody's going to like go to the cops for them or anything like that. You know, it just kind of reminds you how easy it is to get like yourself into a position where like, you know, people just don't look at you as human anymore. Like, even though these homeless, like a homeless person is just a person who stopped having a home at some point, you know, like through whatever circumstances. But like, you know, if there's anything that can make you categorically something that can be abused in the minds of some people, then you're just gonna get it.
And so, of course, that's where we get into the backstories of our main characters, how we learn about their situation, so we get to care about them. So at the beginning, we're just presented like three people, Gin, Hana, and Miyuki. One being like an old man, one being like a former, like a trans person, old former drag queen, we learn later, and the other being like a runaway teenage girl. And it's like, okay, that's a pretty motley crew. How did they get here? And we never actually learn exactly what united them, which I was wanted to know like throughout. But there's actually a lot of like personal details that don't get filled in, which is just real life, baby. So I kind of enjoy that more, I don't know, freewheeling aspect about it. But so first of all, we learn about Gin. Gin, we get little hints throughout. He's like an old man, he's probably in his 50s or something. And he first says like, yeah, my wife and daughter, they died tragically a while ago, man. It really fucked me up. And of course the other two are like, oh my God, that's so fucked up. This poor motherfucker, what are we gonna do to help him out? And of course, as the story unfolds, we learn that no, he wasn't like a champion bike racer. He did run a bike shop, but he ran away because he racked up debts from gambling and cheating and stuff. So like, there's accountability there, which he takes, which I'm happy to see that he's not just, he meets the Yakuza guy who apparently like conned him in some unspecified way into like doing some big gamble to lose lots of money or something. Yeah. But by the end, he's like, okay, he meets a bunch of other people who are like, they don't want to take responsibility for their life. And so he by bouncing off of them and like taking care of Kyoko, that he's like, he's getting that spirit back. His desire to do something great and help people comes back into him. And so like, by the end, he meets his daughter, you know, she's a nurse now. We don't see his wife. She's probably remarried. So that ship has sailed. It's probably been like 20 years or something. But you know, you just come to love the guy and the really like the heroic efforts that he puts in on a lot of occasions, way more than I would do in a similar situation. And there's a great gag that like Hana keeps saying throughout the movie of like, you're not a superhero, Gin. You're not gonna be a superhero. You can't be an action star. I think that's what it was, an action hero. But he does some stuff that's pretty action hero-y by the end of the movie. Best shot being when he's on a bicycle chasing like a dump truck that's been stolen by like this crazy lady who stole Kyoko. And she turns the wheel and smashes him into the guardrail. And everyone's like, oh my God, he's totally dead. There's no way he's alive. But he's clinging to the side of that motherfucking truck, man. It was beautiful.
I mean, that's what Satoshi Kon is the master of visual subversion. It's always about like setting up your expectations in one shot, subverting them in the next in some kind of fun, surprising way. This movie's full of that. It's just, it's so just fast-paced. This is a 90-minute movie. Satoshi Kon's movies, all the other ones are like long, grueling. Well, I won't say grueling. Like Millennium Actress is fun, but like they're meant to kind of lose you in them and in this like sort of dreamlike state. This movie is more just like plows through itself. Like the characters are always on the move. They're always in different places because they're homeless, so they don't have like a home base they return to or anything. They're just
Not
like
really.
walking around the streets trying to find their way, stumbling through scenarios. The leads are very like vague. It's just like they find a key. Like, I guess we got to find out what this key goes for. You know, like it's
very video game logic-y.
There's not a lot of plot. It's just like a sort of meandering with these characters, and we get to know them, and like we have no sense of what's going to happen or where this baby's leading to. It's just constant surprises, and again, just kept tight by good writing and directing.
何か
クズを捨てたいんだが。ちょっと小さいか。
Yeah, and hey, to highlight some of those like great visual subversions, let me see. I've got one or two here. One is there's a great moment where Gin, after having like lost heart in the quest to find the parents of Kyoko, he just drifts off and he finds like a dying old homeless man who's similar to him. And so he kind of hangs out with him and they share a drink at like the end of the guy's days. And in one of the best visual gags of all time, the old man, on his second like last request as he's dying or whatever, just asks for like one last drink of the booze, and he drinks it and he fades out. And the animation here is brilliant. Like the light dims on him. Outside, the pinwheels, they all stop moving, and Gin like says a final prayer. Then he starts moving again, and the windmills start up outside, and the light comes back. I was like, oh no, sorry, I actually had one last request. That's some of the funniest shit I've ever seen in a visual fucking gag, and I was just busting up as I did last time I watched the movie. It's fucking awesome.
The movie's full of just fun, great little weird, inventive moments. Probably the first like shock twist that will stick with most people is when it becomes the Godfather. When the Tokyo Godfathers show up at like an Italian wedding or something.
Well, first of all, they're just walking down the road and they see there's a smash cut to a man suddenly trapped under a car being squeezed to death, and they say when he happens to be basically Vito Corleone, so they help him out.
And so they end up at this guy's wedding, and like Mr.
It's literally the day of his daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
It's literally that shit.
And so like the guy who Gin like had been swindled by is like there, and he's kind of like scared about it. But like there's not a scene of like our characters pull each other aside and have a conversation about how like that's the guy. It's like you see Gin getting nervous. You see the other characters kind of try to figure out what to do, and then all of a sudden a waitress just comes over, pulls out a gun, shoots this guy to death, and everybody just scrambles. You're like, well, fuck. Like
that derailed it, because Gin was about to attack that man with a bottle of booze for swindling him, but that got derailed by him literally. He actually survives. He does survive, and he's wounded in the hospital later. We see some details about that here and there, but yeah.
And then we've got the gunman runs off with, I think,
Miyuki.
With
He grabs
Miyuki,
Miyuki, yeah.
And yeah, it turns out to be a guy wearing a wig and speaking a bunch of Spanish, I guess. And I love the way that it transitions from like he's just screaming at her and like we don't know what's really going on. Is a good guy, bad guy. Eventually, it turns out he's leading her to his sister, I think,
that's his wife,
or his wife who's got a baby already. So they've got 2 babies on each tit, and she has a conversation with Miyuki where like she's speaking Spanish, Miyuki's speaking Japanese, and like they're kind of talking past each other, but slowly getting what each other are saying, even though they can't understand each other. Thought that was a nice little coming together scene.
Not only was that, I mean, that was a nice coming together scene. That was probably my favorite, like, little scene in the movie. When you've got this runaway girl, Miyuki, is staring, like, in awe at the massive mommy milkers that this, like, Hispanic lady has or whatever, that she's, like, feeding her kids with. And Miyuki is just, like, impressed. She's like, damn, that's pretty badass. You can, like, feed children. It's, it's life. it's rebirth. And the fact that like there's a woman speaking Spanish, there is a massive language barrier here between Miyuki, who only knows Japanese, and like a little bit of English. And they try to do some English between each other, but very little gets through. But there's just this sense that pervades kind of both the movie and just like Christmas spirit in general. It's this idea of like shared humanity. Yeah, maybe her husband / brother or whatever just like murdered or tried to murder an Italian mob boss. But here back at home in like our cozy little suite, like way far away from wherever they originally came from, obviously, they're just like raising children and trying to make like a nice, warm Christmas Day atmosphere for him. And that scene was just so sweet, especially because like we see Miyuki homeless on the street, worried about her, don't know how exactly she got into the situation. Like just to see her get a little respite and a little bit of care, and she falls asleep there and just has a little nap. I mean, Miyuki is definitely my favorite like character design, and like her attitude is my favorite of all the characters, with all her little quips and fuck yous and stuff. I don't know who the voice actor was, but I loved it.
Cool.
Yeah, she was badass.
Well, I got to talk about Hana for reasons, obviously, as a trans person. Hana, so this is a character I'm expecting that this character could be divisive with trans people, depending on how much you feel like they represent your experience. Because she's like, so first of all, some translation stuff. I actually decided to watch this dubbed because I'd seen it subbed before. The dub is pretty good. But I'm pretty sure in Japanese they call Hana an okama, right? Like
I think so.
specifically. And okama is a word that like it literally means gay, but it also is usually like implying like a drag queen. And like Japan has various cultures of like they have like a drag culture and then like separately like trans. I know there was like a trans culture where they called them just gay boy. If you're a boy who wants to be a girl, you're called a gay boy in English.
Like literally gay,
Gay boy.
Okay,
Literally the
all right.
English phrase gay boy was a thing in like the 70s. I don't really know what's like the up-to-date Japanese terminology. This person at the start of the movie like their very first line of dialogue is like, I'm more woman than most women.
Yeah,
I was given balls by mistake at birth.
There is
So,
no
like,
ambiguity. If anyone on planet Earth is a trans person, or at least
Seems
identifies,
likely,
it
yeah.
is Hana. It is Hana, yeah.
So Hana's like, yeah, I'm a woman, and her main sort of struggle and arc is wanting to have kids, like being a woman who can't have a baby, who finds a baby. It is like, oh fuck, now I have a baby, but I am homeless and I have no tits, so not much I can do for this
By
baby.
the way, I love the gag. At the very beginning, they're at like a soup kitchen, and there's like an old lady giving soup out, and Hana, this male-bodied person who says they're a woman.
We'll say AMAB, assigned male at birth.
Right, they're AMAB. They lean down and say, like, I'm eating for two, and leans back. And, like, there's a scene maybe 20 minutes later where that lady sees Hana running by carrying a baby.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, the prophecy was fulfilled.
Yeah, she's like, a miracle must have happened. Or she says, like, a miracle birth or whatever. What's the word for immaculate
conception.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. Yeah, it's like, Hana is, like, kind of a camp gay.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Japan has a long history and culture of this particular type of camp gay. She's not even gay, she's a woman, but she hangs out at this cabaret club. It's, again, they're not very like, well, in the English dub at least, it wasn't very clear exactly what kind of club it is, but like
There's multiple
we see that
kinds
she
of
used
people
to sing
there.
at the club and stuff and do stuff. So like, yeah, I guess after like some man she was with left, then she ended up on the street, I think.
It looked like she clearly had a home here, like at the cabaret club. Mama, she calls her, loves her, and she worked there and took care of her. They're like her husband or whatever it was, her paramour died, and she like lost the will to work and or the will to do whatever. And then also she had attacked a person at that club.
Oh,
so
yes.
I think
and was like embarrassed about coming back.
Or, I mean, potentially legal issues could come up and could hurt the club. And Geen, by the way, had like a similar thing where like he could have a job, he just doesn't want to like do that. He's happy to live just kind of off the grid. So I assume there's kind of a similar idea for Hana too.
But yeah, so as for whether I thought Hana was a relatable trans character, yes, I would say so. I was like, the pain of not being able to have babies is great. And if you find babies on the streets, you should take them. And
If you find other people just not looking like they're currently paying enough attention to their
Yeah.
babies,
Yeah.
that's a gray area
snap
there.
them up. Yeah, there's a scene where they're like in the club and like all of the trans queens, I guess, are like, "Oh my God, a baby! I want to have a baby." Yeah, I don't know. I thought that Hana was a cute character. I thought it was an adorable movie. So none of it was like I know someone would be offended by this.
Of course
character.
someone would be
I just
offended.
know it, but
Well,
I am not. I think that she's great. I think they're all great characters.
To comment on that particular subject, I find Hana's desire to like have a child of her own, I mean, is kind of the most like beautiful emotion going on in the story. So I connect with it, and while I can't speak to the relatability of Hana on that front, I can say that as a quality character, I love Hana, and Hana is one of the most. Like, at the very beginning of the movie, the other characters being practical, or maybe just not wanting to deal with it, with Hana's being the more emotional one. They're like, look, we just got to give the baby to the police. That's what we need to do. Hana's just, like, such great desire to have a baby, and disdain, understandably, for, like, whoever would have dumped this baby doesn't deserve it back.
And we also, like, this is something that the movie doesn't have the space to, like, prove this to us. But, like, Hana says, like, I was a foster kid.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want this kid to go through the foster system. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I was watching this movie with some foster kids who were like, yeah, the homeless people would be better raising that baby. Like, the foster system's not great. People don't like going through it. So I understand why Hana would feel that way as well, you know?
That's, yeah, and you know, the feelings behind, I mean, that's much of what they debate, like whether or not the kid would be better off going back to the cops or not. And I mean, actually, in their desire, finally, they say, okay, we will take it back to the mom, and they find the mom. That turns out to not be the right thing to do in the particular way they did it. Now, if they'd given it to the police, I think it would have worked out much better. But in the wacky situations that happen here, we all learn a great lesson. And so to get to it, the way that the baby made its way to the particular trash dump where they found it was, I had to go check this several times. Stolen from, there was a pair of a husband and a wife who had just had a miscarriage. And they may have gotten divorced before this, afterward, or something like that. Sachiko and the guy, who both of whom we meet throughout the movie. They had had relationship issues for a long time, and things had fallen out between them. And so in an act of like manic desperation, having her like her baby stillborn or miscarried or whatever it was, she just goes and steals one from the infirmary at like the hospital where she was, or something like that. The husband, or ex-husband, whatever it was, he knew that had happened, and he took the baby, and he's the one who hid it in the trash as a way to get it back to the police so he could have minimal involvement, because he didn't want to, like, get involved with this madness. A power move. Not a smart move, but a power move. And I was reading the translation of the movie and watched that scene several times where, like, that was supposed to be clarified. I really didn't feel that point of who hid the baby was well clarified. Like, I was like, why would the woman hide a baby she just found? But like, I looked this up online, and the consensus seems to be he hid the baby after knowing that she stole it. What kind of a man? Look, I'm not judging him morally. I'm judging him like intelligence-wise. Why would you think the best possible plan is to put the baby in the trash? Maybe he didn't want his ex-wife or wife to get arrested, and like he's trying to save her from herself or something. I don't know. Okay, but in any case, that being established, our friends find that woman, since, you know, it was they who stole the baby had, like, put this trail of breadcrumbs, basically. They find her in the street and they give it back to her. And she decides, I am gonna go crazy and kill myself and the baby now, because life isn't worth living. My baby died. I'm all fucked up about it. Who deserves a baby if not me? You know, relatable issues that we've been dealing with throughout the movie. And then we get the big scene at the end of the movie where our characters, Miyuki specifically, chases her up a big apartment building, and as she's gonna jump off, everybody's there trying to talk her down, man. It's not Christmas, it's New Year's now. Don't kill yourself. It's okay. There's stuff you can do in the future. You can try to have another baby, man. I mean, I know you're fucked up. Take some time to deal with that. Your husband comes out, even though he seemed like he didn't give a shit. He does, in fact, show up. So there's even a little redemption arc for this asshole husband or whatever. And then something weird happens when they accidentally, she's decided not to jump, but they all fall off the edge of the building. And oh my God, it's such a Chad move. Hana herself leaps after that fucking baby over the edge and grabs the baby, grabs onto a big, I don't know, what do you call it, like a big banner or something, and then something happens where as they're falling down, a big gust of wind comes out of nowhere.
It's a Christmas, New Year's miracle.
It was an extended Christmas miracle all the way to New Year's, and so the day is saved, and then our characters return the baby to the true parents, and they become the Tokyo Godfathers. They are even though whoa, you're gonna make gross, smelly, homeless people godfather of our baby? I don't know about that one, Chief. But they do, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a theme in this movie of like just recognizing people having it worse than you. Like there's a part where I think Gin says something to the effect of like, even though he was homeless, it never like it wasn't as bad for him as it was for other people. So he just didn't even like internalize it as being like that bad.
Yeah.
You know, and like you can kind of see that when they find the baby. Like Gin, his first reaction is like, oh fuck, I don't want this baby to grow up like to have to live my life, you know? And so like it's basically I'm not even gonna call this a metaphor for parenthood, it just is parenthood.
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
it's parenthood at its most desperate of like having no like lots of babies show up unprepared, you know, like the parents weren't expecting it, they're not ready for it, all that kind of stuff. So this is like the most pronounced form of that. It's not even our baby.
Right,
It showed up
right.
out of nowhere. We're homeless. We literally can't do anything for this baby. Can we still get it? Can we still make this baby live? You know, and like even though these are people who all of society already feels like are like beyond the point of even being able to have a life, you know, like if you're
Right.
homeless, you're just seen as like basically dead by most of society.
There's a story that this is actually based on loosely. I forget the name of it exactly. I was looking this up yesterday, and it was called something like the Three Godfathers or like the Three Men or something. It's a story. I think it's Christmas related. I could be wrong. I think it's like a biblical story or like some ancient folklore of like three criminals, three like escaped wanted criminals find a woman dying in a desert somewhere, and she has a baby, and those three take care of the baby. I didn't actually look it up to know how it ends. And I know that was just sort of the general inspiration for this, but the comparison is interesting. If you think of, in that story, they were three like wanted criminals. But in this story, it's three homeless people, and a lot of ado is made about like how they don't belong. Like there's scenes of just the three characters talking, and they're surrounded by people. Everyone else is like looking away and maybe covering their nose, because like these people definitely don't smell great. I was saying as we were watching that like it's all well and good to try to humanize homeless people, but if you put smell-o-vision attached to this, then we might have a difficult time.
I think there's a line where they're like, "Oh, the baby shit himself," and then they're like, "No, it's just you, Gin. You smell it. Smell like shit."
I wonder on another front if this movie might be seen as like, I don't know, like politically insensitive to the plight of the homeless. I mean, I'm just wondering because the three homeless people, they really all choose this lifestyle for themselves, maybe with the exception of Miyuki. And I don't really know the stats or anything, but I know that a lot of it's like due to mental illness, and we don't see like any homeless people with mental illness. And I don't think it's a movie's job to like depict anything politically correct. They're here to tell a story about specific characters. But wondering if people have grievances with this movie.
Well, you could argue that they all have mental illness. She stabbed her dad, so that's
let's talk about her real quick because we haven't really talked about Miyuki much. We find out by the end because Miyuki like sees her dad and calls her dad a couple of times that she was a fat little girl in she's
I
lost
love
a little
that
weight
detail.
since then.
I love that they showed like she was she was. I guess she was pretty much fat.
She was pretty
like
fat.
she had definitely lost like 50 pounds from just being on the street. It seemed like.
That was a good humanizing detail. I thought that you see
and
what
a good way to let us know about how long she's been on the street without saying it, because like long enough to lose this much weight.
Yep. But the reason she's out here, as we learn, is like there was this is one of these vague details that isn't fully filled in. There's some details about a cat she loved, Angel, that like disappeared. Her mom is like weirdly religious. Her dad is a cop. There's clearly some tension there. Something got rid of the cat, perhaps, and then in some fight, she fully stabs her dad, like with like not a knife, like some kind of
scissors. I think.
With the scissors. Okay, and he is bleeding out and all kinds of fucked up. And so out of both like shame and just fear of like him arresting her, out of like physical fear of going to jail, that's why she runs away. And I feel so bad for Miyuki learning about that. Like, sure, she's responsible to a degree, but, she's a teenager. I'm sure this is probably not something she really thought out very well and wanted to do. It doesn't define her as a person. And she clearly wants to go home and is just really scared to do so. And that really got me. That just fear of consequence of things that you didn't even really mean to do. Oh, that's one of the really sad elements. Luckily, it gets addressed.
Yeah.
Hooray!
Everything
'Cause,
gets addressed.
At the very end of the movie, another Christmas miracle. The cop who comes in to like thank the nice 3 homeless people is her dad. Oh!
Hey.
So presumably things work out with him. So there's just a lot of heartwarming moments like that.
Is she gonna leave them behind in the streets? Is she gonna go back home to her fucking cushy meal and leave
You
her
know,
buddies?
I was
be
actually
cold and
that was another element I was thinking about. Like, let's consider the life. What's Gein's life gonna look like from here onward? This is a redemption tale of like characters going from basically being like not immobile, but like they're not making any changes in their lives. They need an inciting incident to like get up the chutzpah to go live. You know?
it definitely I would say that whether the characters are meant to be mentally unstable or not, they definitely don't seem like they couldn't reintegrate into society. I think is what you kind of mean.
Yes, for sure, because they all had previously. And
Right.
maybe
Like
some things
regardless
had
of
happened.
why they've dropped out, they don't seem like they could never be normal again. You know.
And this is the perfect story for like, I mean, I don't know, but like I want every person who possibly like could be made to save themselves, like not just from like living in poverty, but from like the lack of dignity that like they have, and like the fact that they're vulnerable kids just come and fuck with them, they're treated like trash. Oh, it's the saddest shit.
The movie almost makes homelessness look fun until the guy gets his ass kicked. And then
Yeah,
you're like, oh
yeah.
yeah, that's not fun.
I'm very
also,
glad.
it looks cold.
It does look very cold, yeah. They've got kind of surprisingly nice setups. You know, when you think about Japan, I mean, I think fairly like harshly cracking down on crime. And the time when I visited Japan, I have a very memorable experience of seeing one homeless guy specifically sitting on the street as I was coming back from like the gym or something, in like a crowded street. There were thousands of people all around, and this man is just sitting there bending over, playing with his dick, just pulling back the foreskin, just going to town on that guy.
Amazing.
And I was like, is that an... Oh my God, he's fucking with his dick down there. And the fascinating thing about it was how everybody just walked by. And they were Japanese natives. I was just an outsider visiting, and surely they're used to this kind of stuff. But like that guy needed someone to help him or needed something to be done.
Isn't that like
I
every
didn't do
street
it.
corner of New York, basically?
Probably. But it was, maybe it's like this in New York too. But it was the dichotomy. There were the haves and this, at least one have-not. And I mean, I'm no hero. I didn't do anything. I was.
What could you do? The guy's jacking off in the middle of the fucking street.
No,
what are you gonna tell the guy?
He wasn't jacking off. He was examining.
Even
He was
worse.
doing a deep dive.
Even more confusing and bizarre and hard to
Yeah.
communicate with.
I don't know. I just, I don't know. I don't want to fucking virtue signal here. It's just that I have a lot of empathy for people in that situation, and I would like to know what is a really effective way to help them in a way that isn't just wasteful or.
I give my money to the charity for. We'll put a link in the description to the charity for homeless black trans people on the streets of LA. That seems appropriate for this movie.
Sounds fine to me.
It's just the only charity link I know. So there you go.
Okay, makes sense. I don't know. The only other thing I wanted to mention was that there is some very nice animation throughout the whole movie. I heard some talk about like, why wasn't this just live action? And there's many justifications for that throughout the movie. The big stunts that happen, the unique facial animations that humans can't do. That I really remember Miyuki having a lot of great, just like punk sneering facial animations that I loved.
There's an incredible dance sequence in this movie. There's just some great fight animations and stuff. All the animation's fucking incredible.
Did you, you might not notice this. This is a little low key. Did you notice the Akira drift, the Akira slide knockoff they did in this movie?
「マシだわよ」
おっさん
I don't think I remember the Akira thing. I do remember seeing that there was a 7-Eleven that had posters for Perfect Blue and Millennium Actress on it.
Of course,
and
yeah.
There was she makes a Gundam reference. She says, "My own father never even hit me" at one point, which is
Was that a Gundam reference?
That is from original
shit.
Gundam.
Oh, what do you know?
You guys can learn more about Gundam tomorrow because this is coming out on Christmas Eve, and on Christmas Day we have a bonus episode about Gundam 0080, the special Christmas Gundam. Bring your cheeseburgers.
Although the character in that was definitely struck by his father many times, so
yes.
he's a little different.
This was I would say probably watch Gundam 0080 first, and then this for a pick-me-up.
Yeah, I agree. This is coming out the Christmas Eve. That'll be on Christmas Day. But you'll have, then again, with the lockdowns, maybe you won't have your family around you and lots of supporting people to give you the love and support you need in these trying winter months. But just watch Tokyo Godfathers again, and you'll feel better about life.
And no matter how bad your life is, you're not homeless because you're watching these videos.
That's
unless
true.
you're in a library, in which case, where do you find time to watch the anime and the videos?
Yeah, you should be out, hustling, bro.
Yeah.
You should be out selling CDs and working on your rap game.
So
That's what I'd be doing. Well, I guess we've just about reached the end here. Let's give final thoughts on Tokyo Godfathers. For a long time, I haven't watched many of the Satoshi Kon movies. I've been meaning to for a long time.
He only made 4 of them.
He only made 4. Yeah, true, but he also did Paranoia Agent, which I had seen and I really liked when it was on Adult Swim years ago. So,
He also wrote a bunch of great manga.
Did he?
Yes,
I had no
he
idea.
wrote some great manga.
I
highly recommend.
Maybe when we get into the dog days of February and whatnot, I was suggesting at one point that hey, what if we did Perfect Blue, a movie I've wanted to watch anyway? In the comments, let me know what you think about Satoshi Kon and if we should cover more of his stuff.
Tell us what you think. Tell us everything. Tell us everything you want us to watch, and we'll never do it.
We're paying attention to what people want, so let us know. It makes a difference. What do you think, Digi? How do you rate it? How do you like it?
Good ass movie. I mean, with Satoshi Kon movies, they're all perfect. It's really hard to say anything critical. It's you either love the movie to death because it speaks to you personally, or you just recognize that it's a really good movie. I would say this is probably more in the second category for me. It's not my favorite of Satoshi Kon's movies, but they're all just they're the kind of movies that stay in your brain. This is a movie that I think I watched it for the first time probably more than 3 years ago, and rewatching it, almost everything was still in my brain. I was oh yeah, I remember all this. It was not a feeling of window. Oh, I fucking totally forgot this happened. It's breezy, it's memorable, it will stay in your mind and make you feel good forever. So go watch it.
Yeah, I was afraid watching as I was firing it up. I was like, oh no, is this sadder than I remember? Am I gonna feel bad about this? But no, it is a hopeful story and it feels good. And people, even the fact that there's lots of other homeless people, it's not good, but they're getting by. They're doing okay. They're in a bad situation, but they're not dying. I don't know. That makes me feel a little bit better.
Give money to the link in the description.
I don't know. Yeah, go to the link in the description. But hey, first you gotta keep us fed on subscribestar.com/Khantehnt, people. Go check out that bonus episode. I think it's worth your time. And there's 4 other ones, so they're good. A final note: I love these character designs so much. This clusterfuck of looking they would not look good with all these put together weird yellows and reds and blues, but just all together as a mass, seeing them in a shot, I'm just I fucking love how good all these guys look, especially Miyuki. Something about Miyuki's giant hat and weird big coat and her scarf is just adorable, and I love all of them.
Big ass mouths. Mouths.
They sure do.
Put one of those fucking boigas right through their fucking...
All right, that's it, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and go check out that Christmas episode. It's a good time, too. Our camera boy Vic's on there as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're all on.
Go watch it as well. All right, we'll see you next time, everybody. Discord, Subscribestar, Twitter, follow us, give us Khantehnt clips everywhere, and we'll see you next time. Bye! Khantehnt!